Your presence doesn't deserve his attention, or at least that's how it feels. When a woman ignores you, the first sensation is often a simple one, an accusatory emptiness. The message goes unread, eye contact breaks, the door opens slightly and then closes. Yet the echo within that emptiness isn't just about her actions. It's an old story, a recurring desire to be seen. This desire may appear as a small wish on the surface, but underneath lies a deep demand, the ego's need for validation, and the ego's voice is harsh. When ignored, it screams, it plots, it twists reality. Ironically, this scream often makes you feel even more invisible. A missed glance is merely a wandering eye, yet the ego reads it as a rejection of your very existence. At this moment, two paths seem to emerge. Either you act with bigger, attention-grabbing moves, or you remain silent, surrendering to the emptiness within. Both paths are deceptive. Attention-seeking may get a short-term reaction, but it's an echo from someone who doesn't truly know you. Silence, on the other hand, creates an empty shell. Even if noticed, it reveals inner unrest. We see something similar in Dostoyevsky's characters, a reckoning with honor. In his world, people either react excessively from pride or retreat inward to the point of self-destruction. The pain of being ignored swings between these extremes. Anger, pride, surrender, all are masks the ego wears to protect itself. But the real question is, who are you confronting? Them or yourself? Often, being ignored reflects someone else's boundaries or inner turmoil. It is not a judgment on you. Their choices do not define your worth, yet the ego struggles to accept this. It internalizes the feeling of worthlessness and spins a vengeful narrative filled with small manipulations, expectations, and tests. Short-term reactions like dramatic gestures or social media posts are temporary band-aids. They do not heal the real wound. The true pain lies in the fear of not being recognized. This fear grows from uncertainty about who you are. Without a clear understanding of your worth, boundaries, and purpose, external validation becomes a compass. Being ignored disrupts that compass, leaving you feeling lost. But feeling lost is not a crime. It is an invitation. What does it truly mean to feel lost when someone ignores you? At first, it seems like a simple emptiness, a gap in your daily rhythm, a missed signal that your presence was not acknowledged. But if you lean into this emptiness, if you let it settle rather than resist it, you begin to notice layers of yourself that have long gone unexamined. Perhaps there is a part of you that has been conditioned to seek approval in every glance, every word, every fleeting moment of attention. This part whispers constantly, asking, "Do they notice me? Do they care? Am I enough?" It's a soft voice at first, easily dismissed, but over time, it grows into a subtle hum that colors every thought, every choice. And as you sit with this hum, you may uncover even deeper patterns. How many times have you adjusted yourself to fit expectations, not realizing you were shrinking your own truth? How often have you silenced your own needs to avoid conflict, to keep peace, or to gain favor? These patterns are not weaknesses. They are survival strategies, but they also obscure the core of who you are. Being ignored in this sense is not an external failure. It is a mirror reflecting these habits back to you, showing where you have allowed your sense of self to become dependent on the presence or absence of others. In this mirror, you see the small compromises that accumulate over time. Maybe you notice the quiet anxieties that follow you into conversations, the subtle shaping of your words and actions to please or avoid judgment. You may observe the unspoken calculations, when to speak, when to hold back, when to push for recognition. And suddenly what began as a simple act of being ignored transforms into a revelation. You are invited to witness the structures you have built around your identity, the invisible frameworks that guide your behavior without your conscious consent. This is where patience becomes crucial. The ego wants immediate relief, an instant solution, a response, an acknowledgement, a return to familiar validation. But transformation does not arrive in hasty gestures. It comes in quiet observation, in deliberate attention to the subtle currents inside you. You may start by cataloging your emotions, not to judge, not to suppress, but to understand. Which emotions flare most easily? Which fears emerge when recognition is withheld? What stories does your mind tell itself about rejection, abandonment, or inadequacy? Writing them down, speaking them softly to yourself, or even sitting in silence while noticing them. These practices are the first steps toward reclaiming the inner compass that was disrupted. There is a rhythm to this inner work, a cadence that mirrors the natural flow of life. Sometimes the insights arrive as gentle ripples, almost imperceptible, nudging you to notice a small truth you had ignored. Other times they come as surges, sudden revelations that shake old convictions and assumptions. In both cases, it is essential not to retreat into defensive habits, not to silence the discomfort, because this discomfort is not the enemy. It is a guidepost pointing toward parts of your identity that have been deferred, dismissed, or denied. It asks you to confront the habits of thought that have tethered your self-worth to external acknowledgement. And then there is the subtle work of separating the self from the ego. The ego will always frame being ignored as a personal failure, a verdict on your value, a slight that must be countered. It may urge you to respond with attention-seeking behaviors, clever manipulations, or even quiet resentment. But the deeper self, the conscious, observing part of you, can simply watch. It can recognize the patterns, note the impulses, and allow them to exist without acting on them. This does not mean passivity. Rather, it is an active engagement with reality as it is, without the distortions of ego-driven narratives. It is learning to witness without needing immediate resolution. This process also uncovers hidden capacities, resilience, clarity, and creative imagination. When you stop reacting compulsively to perceived rejection, you open a space for new possibilities. You begin to notice the subtle joys in moments that are unrelated to validation. You may find yourself drawn to creative expression, to deep conversation, to personal projects that have been set aside in the pursuit of approval. You start to experiment with being seen by yourself first, cultivating an inner presence that does not rely on the fluctuating attention of others. In this way, the ego's demands lose their power, and a more authentic self begins to emerge, one that is less reactive, more grounded, and surprisingly free. Alongside this, patience and compassion toward others deepen. Once you understand the internal mechanics of your own need for validation, you naturally extend that understanding outward. You recognize that when someone withdraws or ignores, it often reflects their own limitations, boundaries, or struggles. You stop taking it as a personal slight and instead observe it as a human act, complex and multifaceted. The result is a gentler perspective, one that reduces suffering and allows space for authentic connections to form without coercion, manipulation, or undue pressure. In these moments, the lost compass is gradually restored, not by external signals, but by internal alignment. You learn to differentiate between what you can control, your responses, your intentions, your growth, and what you cannot control, others' reactions, attentions, or moods. You discover that self-worth is not granted externally, it is claimed internally, nurtured by conscious choices, and reinforced by consistent attention to your own values and truths. Each small act of acknowledgement toward yourself, honoring your needs, expressing your feelings, holding firm boundaries, becomes a building block in the architecture of a self that is resilient, authentic, and independent of fleeting recognition. Finally, as this practice deepens, the fear of being unseen begins to transform. You recognize that being ignored is no longer a threat but an opportunity, a moment to refine your inner compass, to explore the richness of your inner world, and to cultivate a presence that is whole regardless of external validation. The journey through this discomfort is not linear. It is full of setbacks, surprises, and discoveries. Yet every step toward self-awareness, every moment of honest reflection, strengthens the foundation of a self that is grounded, clear, and capable of sustaining genuine relationships. By the time you emerge from this inner work, being ignored is no longer a source of despair or obsession. It becomes a teacher, a guide, and a mirror that reflects both the parts of yourself that crave recognition and the parts that are already complete. And in this way, the disruption of the compass is not a loss, but the beginning of a journey toward self-mastery, self-respect, and an authentic life that does not depend on the fluctuating attention of others. This invitation asks you to look inward. Be honest. Which parts of yourself seek approval? Which exist only in the mirror of others? There is a fine line here between free will and empathy. Forcing a response violates your boundaries. Sometimes people withdraw not out of rejection, but self-protection. Following these traces, trying to understand rather than blame, is a radical act. True visibility comes not from manipulation, but from someone choosing you freely. There is also a link between pain and meaning. In Dostoyevsky, pain destroys and then rebuilds the person. Similarly, the pain of being ignored can transform you. Instead of seeing it as punishment, ask what it reveals. Fear of abandonment, inadequacy, or crumbling old roles. Awareness is unsettling because it forces action. You may rebuild old defenses or construct a new self. Internal reckoning is challenging. You may resist seeing your own impulses, small manipulations, jealousy, anger, but being ignored uncovers them. Acceptance is difficult. It requires facing the truth without justifying yourself. Sometimes this truth emerges only in solitude. Loneliness is not punishment, it is a gathering of material. You collect your pieces, test them, and reassemble. When the ego shatters, two paths emerge: resistance or transformation. Resistance defends the old self with louder gestures. Transformation requires quiet work, letting go of some parts of your identity, redefining others. Initially, it seems more painful, stepping into the unknown. Yet it offers enduring clarity that does not depend on others' approval. For instance, sending repeated messages when ignored may relieve discomfort briefly but does not build true connection. Social media shows create a fleeting buzz but not deep bonds. Waiting quietly, maintaining rhythm, and setting boundaries may feel odd at first, but it paves the way for meaningful relationships. Instead of blaming others, question your motivation. What does this connection truly mean to you? How does it relate to your self-worth? Remember, no one can complete you. This is one of the ego's grand illusions. Others can offer closeness, but your feelings originate within. Their indifference is not proof of worthlessness. It can be the start of an inner invitation. Rebuild your sense of self. If this feels familiar, step back. Pause. Brief. Examine the root of your feelings. Which part of you seeks validation? Which part feels it has no right to speak? Vulnerability is uncomfortable but necessary. It is the gateway to transformation. As Dostoyevsky showed, the darkest moments of the soul often bring the clearest insight. Invisibility is not punishment, it is a mirror. A mirror does not judge, it reflects. Ask yourself, is this reflection your true self, or a mask shaped by others' expectations? Don't try to destroy your ego, get to know it. Talk to it, dismantle it if needed, and rebuild it with pure intent, not to punish but to understand yourself. True responsibility begins not with earning others' attention, but with earning your own. If this challenges you, embrace the discomfort. It is the spark of change. And finally ask, does being ignored truly reject you, or are you rejecting yourself?